Hello and welcome to the Colorado Health Foundation's Grantee Orientation webinar. My name is Amy Latham and I'm the Vice President of Philanthropy here at the Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us today. Let's go ahead with our agenda. I'll start us off with just a very brief introduction to the Foundation and some information about how we work with our grantees. Next, Sarah Guillaume, our Senior Director of Grant Making Operations, will talk about grant agreements and amendments and the grant reporting process. Finally, Taryn Fort, our Senior Director of Communications, will provide some communications resources. Here at the Foundation, our vision is that across Colorado, each of us can say we have all we need to live healthy lives. We work with organizations like yours to advance our mission to improve the health of Coloradans. Relationships with our grantees are critically important to us. And communications is really the cornerstone of effective relationships. So there are a couple things I wanted to highlight here. First off, your primary point of contact with the Foundation is your program officer, or sometimes you'll see it called PO for short. If you need to reach out to the Foundation for any reason, please start with your program officer as your primary point of contact. Your program officer will be in touch with you at least one time per year to check in, to ask questions about how things are going. We also encourage you to reach out on a proactive basis to share good news with your program officer. We also really encourage you to reach out and let us know when things are not going as planned. Sometimes we can offer some helpful resources or insights. It's also just really helpful for us to have honest and open two-way communications with our grantees. Finally, we ask you to alert us to staff changes, particularly if the primary point of contact for the grant changes during the course of the grant, but also if there are transitions in key personnel working on the project or program, or key leadership transitions at your organization. We may contact you to share and ask you to share your expertise with us or with another organization on pursuits outside of the grant. During the course of the grant, we may also offer to connect you with organizations doing similar work and ask you to share your learnings and information with them. Please know that these requests to connect or collaborate with other organizations are not mandatory. They are simply an effort for us to make sure that we are extending the impact of our grants and your work as much as possible. If during the course of your grant you need to remind yourself who your program officer is, I wanted to make sure you knew we have this resource on our website. It's a map of the state. You can click on your county where your organization is located, and you'll find a list of the program officers working in your area. As I mentioned, strong relationships with our grantees are critically important to our work as a foundation. So that we can better understand how we're doing and what makes for effective relationships, we surveyed our grantees in 2015. That survey was incredibly helpful to us, and here are a couple of the key findings. We learned that the Foundation has more positive perceptions regarding our impact on our fields in which we're working and impact on organizations that we work with. We have similarly positive perceptions regarding impact on local communities throughout the state and our selection process. But we also learned that we have less positive perceptions about our relationships with grantees and our reporting and evaluation process. We are working very hard to really to address these findings and to strengthen our relationships with grantees. To that end, we do have a set of expectations that we provide to you so that you know what you can expect from us over the course of your grant. First, we provide a response to grantee reports within 60 days of receiving the report. We may have questions that we will ask of you, but we always seek to acknowledge and comment briefly on the substance of your work. We respond to grantee email or phone inquiries within 1 business day, or send a notification that the person that you've contacted is out of the office and a timeline with which they will get back to you. And finally, we really strive to communicate internally amongst ourselves so that we can be coordinated in our contacts with grantees.
Thanks, Amy. Hi, I'm Sarah Guillaume, the Senior Director of Grant Making Operations here at the Foundation. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about grant agreements, amendments, and the reporting process for your grant. So to begin, let's talk about the grant agreement. You'll find that your grant agreement on the first 2 pages includes some key information that you'll want to review. For contact information, on the grant agreement you'll see that we've listed a project director contact as well as a Grantee Orientation primary contact. The project director is the person that will be our point of contact as it relates to the specific project or activity funded by the Foundation. Note that in most cases, payments will be sent to the attention of the project director. The Grantee Organization primary contact is the person that is the head of your organization. We typically expect that this person will be the individual that signs the grant agreement. You'll also see the award amount, the term listed in months, and the project start and end dates. In addition, you can see the organization name that checks will be made payable to, as well as the address and tax identification number for that organization. Please be sure that this is accurate and contact the Foundation if any information needs to be updated. Other key information contained within the first 1 to 2 pages of your agreement includes the purpose of the project, which is located near the top of your agreement and gives a high-level description of your project. Any contingencies related to your grant, and note that these typically must be fulfilled in order for you to receive all or a portion of your grant funding. Anticipated measurable results and intermediate milestones related to your project. These sections outline the performance and benchmarks expected from your grant. I'll discuss these items, along with how to report on this information, in more detail in a few minutes. You'll also see your reporting and payment schedule listed on your agreement. Note that we'll send you a reminder approximately 2 weeks before a report is due. And finally, the approved budget is attached as the last page of your grant agreement. We expect that you'll use the grant funds in accordance with this budget for the purpose outlined on the first pages of your grant agreement. Please read the grant agreement in its entirety, even if you've previously received funding from the Foundation. We do a periodic review of our grant agreement, and at times we'll update clauses and information, so it's important to review this document each time you receive a grant. There's 2 sections that we often receive questions about, and those include Section 9, Publicity, and Section 16, Intellectual Property. Note that these section numbers may be slightly different in your agreement, but the header should be the same. So in Section 9, you'll see that we encourage you to publicize information regarding your grant from the Foundation. We do ask that you wait to formally publicize your grant until we have a fully executed grant agreement in place. In a few minutes, you'll hear more information about how we can partner to communicate your grant. In addition, you'll see that in this section, it's stated that the Foundation may include information about your grant in its materials and on our website. Section 16 verifies that you have the right to use all intellectual property associated with your project. In addition, we expect that any intellectual property resulting from your grant will be used by your organization to fulfill its charitable purpose. And finally, the Foundation will retain a non-exclusive license to the work of your grant. Please contact me or your program officer if you have any questions or concerns regarding the information contained within the grant agreement. If you haven't yet, when you're ready, please sign the agreement and return the entire document to the Foundation. The agreement will then be signed by our Vice President of Philanthropy, and we will return a copy of the executed document to you. Once the fully executed agreement is received, we'll release your first grant payment, unless that payment is contingent on something else, such as a challenge grant documentation or a memorandum of understanding with key partners. For multi-year grants, you can generally expect to receive your payment 45 days after you submit your progress report. And please note that we do offer the option to electronically release grant funds directly into your organization's designated bank account, rather than sending you a physical check. So now I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about grant amendments, specifically budget revisions and timeline extensions. We'll also talk about how to request an amendment to your grant. It's okay to request an amendment to your grant, and we know that changes may be necessary in order to support your project. So to begin, let's start with talking about budget revisions. You can find additional information on when you need to request a budget revision in Section 2 of your grant agreement. Generally, you'll need to request a budget revision if you answer yes to all of the following. If the grant is greater than $50,000, if changes to individual line items are greater than 25% of that line item, and if changes to individual line items are greater than $1,000. Be sure to use your approved budget, the one included with your grant agreement, as the basis for your revision request. You do not need to request a revision if you are shifting funds within the same line item. For example, using personnel funds to support 2 part-time positions rather than 1 full-time position. The next type of grant amendment you might request is a no-cost extension, which may be needed to extend the duration of your grant. We understand that delays may occur, such as a delay in hiring staff necessary to implement your funded project. As a result, you may need more time to achieve the expected results of your project. You can again refer to Section 2 of your grant agreement for additional details on when to request a no-cost extension. We will typically grant you an extension to allow you to complete the project as intended, rather than having you return funds to the foundation. In order to request an amendment to your grant, use the form on our website located under the For Grantees section. Please do not include your amendment request within the narrative of your progress or final report. This form includes a section to request a budget revision, no-cost extension, or to describe any other amendment you may need. Please be sure to provide all requested information, including timeframes, dates, and details for all extensions and revisions. The form will then be received by our grant-making operations staff and reviewed with your program officer. You'll be contacted if we have any questions or need additional information. If approved, you will receive an amendment letter from the foundation to append to your grant agreement. The letter will outline any approved changes and modifications to your reporting or payment schedule. Now let's shift gears and talk for a moment about how to report on your grant funds. So the foundation uses an online grant reporting system, and we hope that you'll find it to be pretty easy. It is very similar to the system that you used in order to apply for grant funds. Each awarded grant has specific requirements for reporting on its progress, challenges, and accomplishments. Please refer to your grant agreement for details on your reporting schedule. And again, about 2 weeks to 30 days before your reporting requirement is due, we'll send you an email reminder and provide you with more information to remind you that your report is coming up. Here you can see a few resources that we've posted on our website in order to help you submit your online report. Particularly if it's your first time, you might check some of these out, including a frequently asked question document, some technical tip guide, as well as a sample report. You can also on our website find a full webinar specific just to filling out your online report, so please use that resource if helpful. You can also call or email me or email grants@coloradohealth.org if you have any questions. We're here to help. So you'll submit progress reports every 12 months during your grant term if you have a multi-year grant, and there'll be a final report that's due 30 days after the end of your grant term. Now the progress and final report questions are the same, it's just really that the final report is due at the end of your grant. Now you'll find the due dates for all of these reports listed in your grant agreement, generally on the first or second page of the document. Progress reports in particular should be submitted on or before the due date listed on your grant agreement in order for us to be able to stick to the payment schedule that's listed within the document. A program officer and our evaluation staff will review your report and follow up with you if we have any questions. And note that this is important information to us. We use these reports to learn about your work, and we want to hear from you in terms of what worked well with your project and what didn't. So to complete your progress or final report, we ask that you locate a copy of your grant agreement and use that as your guide as you write your report. The content of your report should focus on grant progress to date. The questions on the report ask for an update on one or more measurable results that are specified in your grant agreement. Also, please give us an update on progress on your intermediate milestones. For example, if you had a milestone to hire a project director, report the date of the hire as well as the new director. A question on the report will ask for a description of significant successes and challenges that your organization experienced related to the grant. And we also ask that you include an updated financial statement and budget narrative. Additionally, you'll have the option to include other attachments if you want to share any other evaluation results about your project. A short summary of other results is welcome, but certainly not required. And finally, please report on the actual grant expenses using the budget template that will be provided with your report. So this is a sample report milestone and the type of brief response that we're looking for. We do ask again that you document your challenges as well as the successes in achieving your milestones. You can see here that this grantee had a milestone to hire a program director by December, but they didn't get that staff person hired until January. This is absolutely fine, and it may help explain any deviations in grant performance if the grant program got a little bit of a late start. Again, here's another sample milestone and report response. This example shows what contributed to the successful achievement of the milestones and what might be a bit of a learning for the organization. So in this example, this intervention is successful when parents receive childcare and a meal at the time of service, which relieves that burden and enables them to successfully complete the program and curriculum. Again, we have a sample report on our website that's complete with responses, and you're welcome to use that for guidance if you're looking for the type of information or the amount of information that we're interested in receiving. Again, my best advice is that you use your grant agreement as your outline, because that's really what we're looking at and interested in understanding in terms of how your project is going. In regards to the budget, we suggest that you take the approved budget from your grant agreement and use it as a guide to fill in the actual grant expenditures. Again, you will be referring to the documents that both you as the grantee, as well as we as the funder, have as part of your grant agreement. This way you can be more confident that you're addressing all the areas in which we're expecting you to report. So as highlighted in this slide, if your approved budget was $20,000 for program services for year one, and your organization spent $18,000, please fill in $18,000 on the actual grant expenditures form. Please use the template provided to report your expenditures to date. In other words, the actual expenditures don't have to match exactly, but if there's a significant deviation in your spending, you should be communicating that to your program officer, hopefully before the report is due, or you can address it within the report. Remember that we're here to help, so please feel free to contact me or your program officer if you have any questions about reporting on your grant. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Taryn Fort, who will talk to you about your communications partnership with the foundation.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Sharing news of this important partnership between a grantee and the foundation is a really easy way to maximize the impact of your work through communications. We're here to work with you as you identify ways of making this information more publicly available. You should have received a memo from me with your grant agreement that outlines our hopes for partnering with us to communicate about your grant. Once your grant agreement has been finalized, we encourage you to start sharing the news by informing your staff and constituents through appropriate communications channels. You can share a news release to the media. You can put together emails and send those to your stakeholders and staff and board. You can put together articles and share those with local community newsletters. And of course, we always love to encourage sharing on social media. The communications team here at the foundation is available to review any content before you send it out to ensure accuracy about the grant information and the foundation. It's also helpful for us to know about these types of proactive communications because we're equally as excited to share the news of your good work through our contacts and channels. The foundation, like many of you, has specific style guidelines with content. When referencing the foundation, we ask that you refer to us as the Colorado Health Foundation with a lowercase the preceding our name, unless, of course, the name begins with a sentence or stands alone. We try not to use acronyms as a second reference, and instead like to refer to ourselves as the foundation, as long as it makes sense. Sometimes grantees like to add our logo to an external communication. You can request logo files from the communications team by sending your request to info@coloradohealth.org. Make sure to indicate how you plan to use the logo, whether in print, broadcast, or digital format, so we can send you the correct file type. We encourage every grantee to sign up for our monthly e-newsletter on our website. This is the best and easiest way to hear about new funding opportunities, read new blog posts that we've been releasing, and of course register for events that we host throughout the state across the year. As many of you know, the foundation is very active on social media. We use social to communicate foundation and grantee news, as well as information about events we're hosting and reports that we're releasing. We often feature content such as staff interaction, educational information, and tips about how to live a healthy lifestyle. We primarily engage on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. On the slide, you'll see our handles and our Facebook address. If you haven't already, please like or follow us, and we'll return the favor. Finally, we do live stream and archive most of our events. You can find archived footage on our YouTube page. This slide includes some online resources that may be helpful to you. The Communications Network offers a local free chapter called ComNet Denver that you can join for networking and educational events in the Denver area. Reagan Communications offers conferences and very niche communications education, but they also offer a lot of free webinars. Colorado Healthcare Communicators Group offers regular events and education. The Nonprofit Technology Network, or N10 as you may know it, offers many resources to members for social media planning and implementation through training webinars. They offer case studies and benchmark reports. They also host a really fantastic annual conference. The Knight Foundation specializes in funding innovative communications, and they offer lots of resources on their website. If you don't already, follow Beth Cantor's blog. She's a known guru in the nonprofit marketing space and regularly provides directional content and resources for nonprofits to reach their audiences most effectively. She's particularly helpful to nonprofits who may not have communications or marketing staff. And finally, the Nonprofit Marketing Guide is a great resource that offers lots of free templates and tools and webinars. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Sarah to review frequently asked questions.
Thanks, Taryn. So to end, we're going to review a few frequently asked questions. The first one, does a no-cost extension need to be completed for changes to milestones in our grant agreement? A change to a milestone in your grant agreement does not require a formal amendment request, but we do recommend that you stay in touch with your program officer and let them know of changes, particularly if the change will impact your overall time frame or the expected outcomes of the project. Another question we often hear is, can you give me an example of what kind of program challenges we should document in a progress report? You might mention challenges such as hiring delays, trouble recruiting program participants, or a shift in the sources of your funding. They could be expected or unexpected challenges that you've experienced during the period covered by your report. Another question we often hear, if there are funds left over, can we add some additional components to our project, and how would we seek approval for that? Here, we recommend that you talk to your program officer if you have any funds left over. We'll often work with you to extend the project so that you're able to use those funds, but it really does depend on the circumstances. You may be wondering how long it takes to get approval for a grant amendment. Now, if you submit an amendment request and you provide all the information that we asked for and that is needed, you can typically expect a response from the foundation within 2 weeks. We'll let you know if the time frame is going to be significantly longer than that. And finally, we are often asked, can we apply for additional funds to expand our existing program, and for how many years at a time? Here again, I'm going to say talk to your program officer if you're interested in seeking additional funding for a current project or grant. They're really in the best position to give you advice on that.
That concludes our Grantee Orientation webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today.